Hello and welcome to Homegrown DXB, the show taking you inside the lives of the people changing yours right here in the UAE. I'm your host, Amar Balti. Now, our guest today has always held a good meal close to her heart. Luma Makhlouf dreamed of becoming a chef since the age of 14. Although she had a promising career in tech, Luma left to pursue her passion, joining a culinary school and eventually launching her very first venture, Maiz Tacos, as a food truck. Luma is nothing if not tenacious, having grown her company to encompass many different businesses, from Luma Cakes to spread catering, with community favorite Good Burger opening its first brick and mortar location in the midst of the ongoing uncertainty here in the Arabian Gulf. Luma, welcome to Homegrown DXB. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having you. I mean, certainly very accomplished. You've done a lot in the time that you decided to go off and be an entrepreneur and start your own business, or many businesses, P&B, as it's now been branded, I believe. And I have all these things under the umbrella. I want to, of course, get to Good Burger. I want to get to Maiz, but I want to kind of get to know you a little more first. So I want to go back to very first job, I think, that you took on when you were 14 years old, which I believe was also in the sort of food space. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I had a energy and a need to work. And I grew up around entrepreneurs. My dad was an entrepreneur, hustling, doing a bunch of different projects, my uncles. So I really wanted to work very early on. And I had to beg my parents, me and my sister both, to let us get like jobs around the house, around like nearby, not so far away. And my first
Why
job,
was it so important for you? I mean, your sister as well. So like the both of you felt like if you weren't working that you weren't, I don't know, satisfied? Or?
That's probably a question for my therapist, but I think we wanted our independence at a young age. We wanted to be out, and hustling just like everybody around us that we saw. I had a young uncle that had just moved from Jordan as well. So maybe it was just a curiosity for work and kind of, dipping our toes in the water. And I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it so much. And that's why I had been working since I was 14. But my first job was at a place called Gaddyland. It was kind of like a Chuck E. Cheese at the time. And I was working.
Just for people maybe here, I know what Chuck E. Cheese is. I've spent a good amount of
Like a
time in
kids'
America.
entertainment place.
I get like a play center. You have the ball pit. You have arcades. That sort of thing.
You have like this whole like diner area that we probably would never eat from now. But back then it was all the rage.
It was great. Yeah, of course. The pizza, everyone knew about the pizza. Legendary.
Yeah, and it's where, people also hosted a lot of their kids' functions and birthday parties. So I started being the first I started being on the line, helping people with serving the food. And then I was a cashier, and then I went to being an actual party planner. So I was kind of like the mascot of the parties. So I wore lots of hats at that job that actually really helped me build my confidence when I think about it.
I mean, it's funny that even there you sort of describe, I guess, an upward trajectory, right? You start off and then you end up as a party planner, sort of like an organizer, already a quote unquote, I guess, leader within your small little space, which is, foreshadowing for things to come, I suppose. So you had that experience, and you had this desire to work, but you didn't immediately decide you were going to pursue that as a career, right?
No, I wanted to. Even though my mom is till now one of the best cooks that I have the pleasure of eating from. But she was a great cook and a great host, and she wouldn't really let us into the kitchen, right? She just kind of wanted to get it done. She was a mom of four. So I hadn't dabbled in actual cooking, right? I was a kid, and I had always the best meals to come home to, But I knew that I wanted to try it. And I came back a few times to her, and I was doing really well in school, but I said, I really want to go to culinary school. I really want to do it. And there was a culinary school where I was growing up in Chicago. But, brown parents, no.
Get a real job, do something serious.
Go to uni, graduate, and then see what you want to do. So I did that. And
what did you end up studying?
Business and finance, yeah.
I mean, I guess that's come into play too, right?
Of course, yeah. But I think I always say this, now I maybe say it a little bit less, I'll be saying it to my kids a lot, but what really shaped me, I'm talking about my confidence, my personality, the grit, it's working from a young age. Do I recommend working from 14, 15? Probably not. 16, 17, yeah, maybe. But that drive and that motivation of waking up every day, going to school, and then going to, a job and earning your own income and watching that grow. And yeah, I think the structure of it, that whole routine is very fundamental to gaining your independence and understanding what it means to have responsibilities.
So what first brought you to Dubai then?
A job.
Okay.
I had graduated university and I took a little bit of time. I actually went to Jordan where my family lives, our extended family. And I got a job there and it was fun. It was interesting. It was with an Australian company in finance. And I was really good at it. And I'm good at sales. They used to say, oh, Luma could sell ice to an Eskimo or, all those silly sayings. But it was heavy. You're calling like 100 people a day or 100 businesses a day. And even though you're really, really good at it, something always felt like it was missing. And then someone headhunted me to another company that had a big office here in Dubai. And I had started hearing about Dubai. And I had only lived in Jordan at that point for about 8 months.
And what year was this?
2008, the beginning of 2008. But I ended up moving to Dubai towards the end of 2008. So right after the crash.
Right. So already you came in and there was a little adversity.
And everyone
you were
said, don't do
facing.
it. Even the CEO of the company that I was a mentor of the company here in Dubai was like, this is not a good time. Should really reconsider. But I did it anyways. And that was, almost 16 years ago.
Yeah, just a small time ago, I guess.
Yeah.
So you come, you have this job, but at some point you decide to sort of leave that career trajectory that you're sort of on, by all accounts doing quite well at, and go to culinary school, which obviously was the dream from before. How did that happen? How did you get the confidence to do that, or what made you take that decision?
My husband, he was born and raised in Dubai, lived between Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And, people who grew up here, they carry a certain perspective that people from the outside can't really understand at the beginning. They just have a weird twinkle in their eyes and they really genuinely believe anything is possible. And my husband, Haidar, was and is like that. He's somebody that truly believes in chasing your dreams and your hobbies and turning it into anything or nothing, but do it, right? So, he meets this Palestinian girl from Chicago, and I'm like, what do you mean take sabbatical? Or who has that opportunity? That's not reality. But to him, it was, and he pushed me and kept pushing me. And, I had a really good job, and I was working. I had left the startup world, and I had gone into a very senior director level job that I wasn't very familiar with, but at a very massive corporation. And sometimes with big 9-to-5s, you have your weekends. It's a lot more flexible than when I was in the startup days, in the startup companies that I worked for. So I did it. He pushed me and he came with me and we went to ICCA and I signed up and I was doing culinary school on the weekends.
And what was that like? Was it what you expected? Is it harder than you expected? When you came in, did you find that you had a natural aptitude for it? Sort of, you talked about the fact that your mother's an excellent cook. You had the desire to do it. Maybe, obviously, now we know that you have some talent. We've seen it. It's been borne out. But, what were those early experiences like when you joined the culinary school?
Yeah. Well, before that, if I can just rewind a little bit.
Of course, yes, please.
When I moved to Dubai, I barely even knew how to fry an egg because I was so spoiled. It was my first time living alone. My mom was making me lunch and dinner every day.
That's also a very typical Arab mother.
Very typical, yes. Yeah. And I craved it so bad. And I was living in, the shared apartment in JBR in 2008. Khalas, after 50 biryanis, you want to get back to your home cooked food and the food that you were familiar with. So I will never forget, after all my roommates would go to sleep, I would open Skype and my mom would teach me how to cook on Skype. And I did get better by myself. When I got to culinary school, it was very different. I went to a school which is great and it's amazing. as a whole, but it's very cold, right? And I didn't have the luxury of traveling outside. I needed to work. I needed to still commit to my responsibilities. So I was a little bit taken aback. You know, it was a lot of classroom and books and chemistry and science, because, you know, there's the pastry part of it and then there's the savory part of it. If you want to complete it, you have to do all of it. I learned early on, I hate pastry.
And that's why you opened a cake company.
Yeah, that's exactly why. No, I love cake, but I don't understand making a batch of macaroons, for example, for 9 hours. Or have you ever learned about making a croissant? It's very, very
I mean,
crazy.
I've never made one myself. I'm sure if I did, it'd be terrible. I am aware that it is a laborious process.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I'm not accustomed to that. You know, I'm like, oh yeah, I can make a pot of maklouf in 1 hour easy with all my little hacks and tricks. But sitting and folding dough over butter for 10 hours, yeah, probably not. So it was great, honestly. Like, I really love learning, and I love learning more about myself and what I like. And parts of it were so gratifying to know that I can accomplish this in 9 hours. Other parts of it were very demotivating. Like, what the heck am I getting into? I don't want to do this. I don't want to work on a line, you know, doing this. And it gives you a lot of appreciation for, you know, the people that work in the industry, and this is what they love doing. And you really got to love it, right? Food as a whole, the entire industry, F&B, you got to love it because it's very challenging.
I mean, absolutely. It's also very competitive here. I mean, most places, right? It's not just going and cooking, whipping something up, and then selling and having a great time. And I'm sure you've discovered that in much more detail than certainly I would have as you went forward. So when we come to your first venture, Maiz Tacos, was that something that was already sort of cooking, you know, pun intended, while you were at culinary school? Did you go in thinking I want to start my own restaurant at the time? Sort of when did that
That's such a good question.
come to fruition?
No, I didn't go into culinary school thinking I was going to start my own restaurant. And no one's actually ever asked me that. So I went to culinary school because my husband pushed me to do something for myself for once in my life, to do something for Luma. Like, what do you really want to do? Oh my God, it would be amazing if I could actually do that. Okay, so do it. And that's very much like Haidar's mentality. You don't need a reason to go and explore something that makes you feel good, you know? And that's why I say he has so many hobbies and loves, and he perfects them, because you don't have to have a reason for it. You should do what you really, truly dream, like, and you want to do. That was the time, right, when Salt had opened up, like, just like on the cusp of the food truck. So obviously we were thinking about a food truck, but the regulations and the rules didn't allow it at the time. And there was really only one food truck, and it was parked in one spot. So the essence of a truck wasn't really there, but it was in a container form. But by the time I finished, and we had met with like all the consultants in Dubai, because, you know, we weren't gonna jump in and open a food truck or a food brand by ourselves. No, we come with experience. We're both business minded, and we've worked in businesses our whole careers. So we knew that you gotta leave it to the guys that can really help you build it in the right way. And we found a consultancy that we really vibed with and meshed with and respected. You know, you have to respect all the people that are responsible for the menu, the design, the logistics, the operation of actually putting this together. You know, you're talking about building something from scratch, and we wanted to do it the right way. Even though we were investing with our own money, and, you know, we didn't have any loans, we didn't have anything, we wanted to make sure that at least we were starting and we were giving Maiz, or whatever the brand was going to be, what it deserved to launch. So when we finally got to that point, and you know, you have a few meetings with them, they're like, what do you want to do? And at that point, that was when everyone was putting truffle on everything. you know?
I mean, they still kind of
They
are.
still kind of do, yeah. But back then, I mean, they were putting it on everything. So it was very much about like gourmet street food and kind of making that fancy, you know? And in my mind, I'm like, no, we have too much of that. And what are we missing? And in Chicago, in the States, I grew up eating Mexican food all the time, not just because my friends are Mexican or my cousins are Mexican, but it's everywhere. You
It's
know,
also excellent in
it's
Chicago.
also amazing, yeah. It's like saying shawarma in the Middle East or falafel. It's a staple food in your weekly meal plan, right? So even I will never forget when I came for that interview for that first job, and I had lived in Jordan for like a year. They didn't have good Mexican food in Jordan, Amman, right? So the first meal I went to have, like after I got off the plane, went to the hotel, is I went to have Mexican. It's something you crave. So I kept telling my husband, we gotta do tacos. We gotta do Mexican. We gotta do Mexican.
And that was always the idea. We're
It
gonna
was,
do.
but we were like debating it constantly, you know, because the consultants, no matter how good they were, they didn't have any other clients saying they want to do Mexican. They all want to do, you know, what I had just mentioned. So I won, and and yeah, that's when Maiz Tacos was born. I knew I wanted to make it a very short name. And yeah, maíz means corn in Spanish. It's a Latin word, so you can say maize, you can say maíz. And we were that consultancy who's not around anymore. They had an amazing, who's still a friend, chef that was there. His name was Victor, and he was Latin, so it was great. And I'll never forget the day we started doing the tastings, and we were working on all the recipes together. He would just, you know, introduce the different avocados and the different corianders and the different masas and how that would play out in our recipe, how ingredients are so important. And of course, we always, Haidar and I are very aligned on how we want to have the most premium ingredients we can get our hands on. If we don't love it and we're not obsessed with it, then we're not gonna serve it. And we launched that way. Until now, we have some of the same suppliers we launched with 9 years ago.
So you chose wisely at the time, I guess.
Yeah.
So you have the food truck, and it does pretty well. Operationally, what was it like running a food truck? I mean, obviously that was something new for you as a business. Was it more complicated than you expected?
The logistics of, you know, moving the truck from point A to point B is a nightmare. My husband would attach it to his 4x4 and he would be driving it around. And that was always very scary. Like,
Because
are
that's
we
a
gonna
big
hit the
investment you have like
Yeah.
behind your 4x4,
And it's
right?
7 meters long and 3 meters wide. So
So you were driving, your husband was driving himself from place to place as you
Yeah.
guys set up all the
yeah,
time.
on the sand, you know, in the desert. It was crazy. Yeah. And it got hurt a few times, obviously. But it, you know, it did well. That was one of the things that was always scary. Like, are we gonna get the truck to where it's supposed to be? And then when you get there, it's fueling the truck to actually work. That's a whole other story because these trucks are powered by diesel from generators. You can't just plug them in. Now they build different ones where they might have like 3-phase connections. So you have to invest in a plug. And if you're lucky, a building will have a connector, which they never do. So those two things were always very frightful. Like, I knew I'm gonna get somewhere. Is the connection gonna be there? Is the organizer gonna be working with the right generator company to make sure we don't burn the whole thing down and the DB box and stuff? But when you're on it and it's stable and you are just flipping those tortillas and you have a queue, you know, that goes down 20 meters, it's a kind of magic that I would chase for years and years to come. It's amazing.
How did you know you'd reached the critical mass, that it was the right time to open a physical location?
I think we had done Soul DXB and we had a queue. This is back in the day. You know, I'm not talking about like, I'm talking about like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. We had done Soul DXB and there was a queue for 2 days and it did not stop. And we couldn't supply enough. And we're very fast because don't forget, 3 years prior to that, or 2 years prior to that, we started on a truck. So all we know is a 7 by 3 meter kitchen. And we were fast, and we were producing the protein and the marinations and everything the night before in a central kitchen. And we were working very, very closely with our team on the ground to, fulfill the orders. So, khalas, it just became very natural to us. Okay, it doesn't mean it wasn't chaotic and it wasn't crazy and we didn't make mistakes. Of course we did. But we were very, very fast and we still couldn't keep up. And that's when I think Haidar and I looked at each other and we were like, okay, I think we're onto something. We should consider looking for a spot.
And then, of course, you found the spot in JLT, right? If it was the first one. What was that transition like? Because at that point, now you're pros. You know how to hook up the truck, or you know how to hook up the trailer, carry it around. You've got all that figured out, even with the quirks. But I imagine there's a transition when you go from a food truck to an actual restaurant space.
Yeah.
Did it turn out the way you expected? Did the people come the moment you opened up? Did you have the demand that you saw there from Soul DXB? Were there any other hiccups along the way?
So right before we actually took the plunge and we opened JLT, we were invited to join a pop-up in Dar Wasil. I don't know if you remember, Dar Wasil had a bunch of little restaurants that were all kind of parallel to one another.
It sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a plug-and-play solution. So you just move in, decorate it a little bit, and you can open the next day. And we did that. It took us, I think, 1 week. There was a tiny kitchen. I think it was, 200 square feet max. It was like a square in the middle of the 6-seater restaurant, which was actually perfect for us at the time. So to answer your question, when we did that, we realized that, no, you don't just build it and they will come. That was 7 years ago, okay? So 7.5 years ago. So yeah, you need to be doing a lot of marketing. You need to be doing a lot of networking. And you need to have your face out there so people know. Because like you said, F&B in Dubai is very, very competitive.
At this point, I'm sure you had more competition in the sort of Mexican taco space.
Yeah, a little bit more. I think Tacado had just popped up. I know it's QSR, but still, there was more Mexican popping up, which is actually great. It's good to have competition because what it does, in Mexican anyways, is it educates everybody about the cuisine, which in return might work for all of us, right? So that was never an issue, but the issues were getting people to footfall. Dar Wasil was a brand new mall that nobody knew much about. Now it's like one of the coolest food spots. You can go, Baron Jack is there, Kishmish is there. There's a lot of amazing brands there. But we were the first ones to move in. So it just probably wasn't the right timing, but we smashed it and we were operating. I was opening and closing the restaurant. Me and Haidar, we were on the line or in, serving the guests. And it was fun. It was amazing. Was it as busy as what we realized our restaurants should have been? No, but it was a great way to practice and to test it out. And we were profitable for the most part.
Profitable enough to keep going.
Yes, to keep going. And the landlords were pretty cool when we said, listen, this doesn't make any sense for you or for us. Khalas. We went and found the location in JLT.
So the location in JLT obviously does quite well. When do you then, because now we've had, what you said, 7, 8 years of Maiz, I guess, at this point?
Yeah.
8 years of Maiz. When do you decide that, under the umbrella of a P&B Co., you're going to expand and start trying new things, whether it was a good burger, was that first? What made you decide, okay, we're going to add this on, we're going to take on this extra responsibility?
Yeah. There was never a right time. And we actually didn't expect Good Burger to grow into a brand on its own. It was just for fun. Haidar had been making these burgers and these patties, the same patty, the same blend from the same supplier in our garden for years before that.
It's just for your own consumption or friends and family, basically?
Yeah, for friends and family. And everyone had been joking around, being like, oh my God, you should start a burger shop. And we were like, that's really cringe. Like, we make tacos, you know,
We're better than that.
no,
Okay.
we're gonna stay in our lane.
Fine,
It was
fair.
like imposter syndrome, right? Where, what do you mean we have like a chance to make other things? Because although we had already been in the industry for a few years, khalas, you think, no, I have to stick to my craft, perfect my craft, and don't even think about doing anything else. Now things are very different. The playing field is very different. How many restaurant owners like me or chefs own multiple brands and have launched multiple collaborations? It's the norm now. But back then, it was very scary and jarring, right? He did it anyways. We did it anyways.
Well, it started as like a separate menu or secret menu, right?
Secret menu, and not for dine-in, only for delivery, right after lockdown. Okay, so it was like perfect timing. And he had done the logo himself and the branding, and we went to the suppliers, we got some wax paper and some boxes, and it launched on Deliveroo only. And
So when you launched, actually I didn't realize this, when you launched Good Burger, that was during a previous crisis, basically. That was during the global pandemic.
Maiz was only open for 6 months. Our first restaurant, first ever restaurant. Like I was, when we started fitting it out, I was, I don't know, 4 months pregnant. I painted the walls, we epoxied the floor. I planted all the plants with my team. And then my doctor, I had gone into preterm labor, and my doctor, I was living in the hospital for 5 weeks. My daughter's amazing, she's fine, she's great. But they let me.
Happy to hear that.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. They let me go home for 1 day out of those 5 weeks just to open the restaurant. So I had opened JLT, and then Ayla was born the next day. And I was back to work a week later. It's my first restaurant. What do you mean? Like during labor, Haidar always shows me the video. I'm like sitting, working, watching the cameras while, you know, the restaurant.
Like live feeds of the restaurant,
Yes,
basically?
of course.
I suppose that's your other baby, right?
Well, technically my first baby, right? Non-human
I won't
baby.
tell Isla that. Yeah.
And then COVID hits, literally.
I mean, so you've had a lot, I mean, I guess we all have lived through this, but you've literally had a lot of experience with opening new businesses, running new businesses during, you know, crisis points. I mean, we'll get to, obviously, the current situation right now, and Good Burger again. But how do you deal with that? How did you sort of take, I'm sure, what was a very difficult, potentially, you know, worrying, scary moment, and decide, you know what, we're gonna start something new?
Yeah. Well, that's, you know, a two-answer question, right? First of all, just like our current situation, when the pandemic happened, everything changed overnight, right? Very similar. So, and we were all in it together. And had anyone heard of a pandemic? We hadn't experienced anything like that.
No, not since the early 20th century, right? So 100 years. If someone lived over 100 years, I guess they would have heard of
Yeah,
that.
and around us, no one had. So you find comfort in knowing you're all in it together. This isn't happening to you. This is happening to all of us. And I'm somebody that's quite spiritual. I really believe that, you know, God has my back. If I'm on the right path and I'm doing what I'm doing, I call it my business karma. If I'm doing it the proper way, and that has a lot of facets to it, you know, how I show up for my customers, how I show up for my staff, how I show up for me and my partner, how I show up for my suppliers, then I know it'll all work out. You know, God's got our back. So you do find comfort in that, even in a pandemic after you had just opened a restaurant. What can you do? It's not in your hands, right? And at that time, there was conversations around like, oh, good thing we didn't open downtown and lost all that money. Good thing we found a humble place that we, you know, fitted out ourselves, right? You find the silver lining. But subhanAllah, it worked out and community showed up, and you pivot quickly and you find what's working, what's not working, and it all works out.
You have a secret menu for delivery only during the pandemic. Makes sense. Good time to do that. How does that start to get traction? How do you get the word out? How do you even market that you're, by the way, Maiz is still there, but there's this other menu that you can order from?
It just happened. It started we started an Instagram page for it, and we would post, and the burgers look good. You know, you're talking about 160 grams of this really good patty.
Who took your photographs?
Me and Haidar.
You're just there, getting close, getting
Yeah,
interested.
who's gonna do it? Till now. No. And we put it on Deliveroo, and they backed us a little bit because we were like exclusive at the time, and it was a new thing that was happening. And the customers, how the story went was very simple. The customers, two things happened. They seen the burgers being made at Maiz, and burgers have a distinct smell. So while that happened, at the same time, on the aggregator, Good Burger had started getting traction and a lot more orders. And I will never forget the time we knew that we had to change something, because in F&B, when you hit the Emirati community, when you're able to connect with that community who's very fluent in really good food and chase really good food, you have to be prepared for it. It's a good rush and an amazing demographic to harbor and to be able to cater to. And if you know anything about the Arabi Emirati customers, is that they will come and find you. And that's how the story went. Two young guys followed the delivery driver that they had ordered from, and they found Good Burger inside of Maiz in JLT.
And that becomes part of the story, right?
The secret was out. Yalla, give us the burgers. We want the burgers now. And I remember me and Haidar were home. I don't know, it must have been like 5 o'clock or something, like usually the slow time. And, you know, they were like, chef, there's these guys here and they want Good Burger. They know Good Burger's here. And I remember Haidar looking at me and I was like, oh yeah, I know you got to turn them away, right? That's so weird, like serving that through Maiz. No one was doing that. Haidar's like, just do it. Give it to them. And that was it. Snapchat here, Instagram story there, and that's it. We were serving Good Burger and Maiz through Maiz's location.
I mean, I think it's become part of its charm. It almost feels like, yeah, like it's, you're, I mean, now it's not a secret, obviously, but it feels like you're in on the secret. You're in the club, right?
Yeah.
And that makes it feel a little more special.
Yeah.
Speaking of clubs, you know, you weren't content with just 2 ventures. You know, you and your husband, you were like, let me try some new things. You had a supper club for a while, the women's table.
Yeah.
The breakfast club, is that also similar that you've
So
done?
the Breakfast Club is just a brand that was created, I think, 1.5 years ago as a cloud brand. And it's breakfast sandos, you know, egg sandos. And an aggregator that we were working with had recommended it in one of the kitchens. And we were already operating in that kitchen with Maiz and Good Burger. So I said, what the heck? And I made this brand, and now it's doing really well on delivery, yeah.
What I guess makes you, and we've kind of talked about how it's happened fairly organically, but like when do you decide, when do you come up with these new ideas? When do you decide, okay, I'm going to do the breakfast club, and we'll get to your catering business in a second as well, because you have many businesses that you've put under P&B. Yeah, why did you decide, okay, you know, let's do this breakfast club? Was it just an idea that came to you that you decided you wanted to do? You talked about the aggregator. Also the supper club, was that something that you just thought would be a fun thing to do, or did you see a business opportunity? You know, how do you decide when to pursue these things and what to add under your company umbrella?
I have so many ideas, and because I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I'm somebody who really just loves business and starting new businesses, and I'm very creative when it comes to that part of the business, like just the fundamentals of starting a brand and just like going with it. So I have a lot of ideas. I can come up with ideas based on, really at the root of it is what I feel is missing as a consumer myself. So a woman's table was created out of, for me, necessity. I didn't feel back then, you're talking, again, this is a very different time, even though it's such a short period, right? That there was a lot of room for women in F&B at the tables. Now, thankfully, there is. it's changed a bit. So I created my own table and I invited women in F&B, and then brands decided to sponsor it here and there and there. And then I got busy. I got pregnant.
With all these other businesses?
Yeah, with another baby as well. And then I opened Dubai Hills. So it's taken a back seat, but it's still something that's very dear to my heart, and bringing community together. I still feel I do it in other ways, you know, whether when I launch a new menu, I love to invite a lot of people to get their feedback. But at that point, there was a need for this, I believe, in the community, and that's where it came from. And same with Luma's Cakes, and same with the Breakfast Club, and even spread catering. I just want to fill something that I believe is missing, and I know that my base and the people that I deal with throughout my businesses would appreciate.
Well, again, I guess speaking then, I guess, of that community that you've built over these years, they certainly showed up, and hopefully will continue to show up for you. And even this moment we're in now, you guys decided to go ahead and launch your, physical location for the Good Burger. No longer a secret menu; it's now an official restaurant.
Yeah.
Again, even amidst the ongoing uncertainty we have right now, the supply chain challenges I'm sure you're facing, it's not an easy time for any business, but particularly I'm sure for the F&B business. What gave you the confidence to say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and do this anyway?
That's really just part of our DNA. And I think a lot of homegrown brands that made it through COVID feel the same exact way that we felt when, this situation started. And it's, we just got to keep on going. We got to keep on trucking, and there is no other way, right? We don't give up. That's not who we are. We're resilient, and sure, we could have paused the Good Burger launch and said, let's just wait till September, which is what a lot of projects have done. And I completely understand doing that, especially with the staffing costs, the rent. You have a lot of developers that don't understand, they don't really care. So maybe cut your losses, right? But for us, that's not how we work. That's not how Haidar and I are. And
you think that comes back to the sort of the spiritual nature, the faith you talked about earlier?
100%. And I think, a lot of people are impressed that us and others are still opening at this time. But let's be realistic. You invested a lot of money to get here. You're not going to just turn, your back now and say, you know what, I can't get into this for another year. Like, if things don't improve, you're going to make it improve. And you're going to pivot and find ways to create new revenue streams, to downsize. Maybe I didn't need to launch, I did. But maybe I didn't need to launch with masalan 10 people on the line. And if I wanted to downsize or someone else in my place, they could have launched with 5. Maybe I don't open delivery at the beginning. Maybe I close early. Maybe I move some staff to the other kitchens. Alhamdulillah, we were able to keep all of our staff with no salary reductions. Of course, we were the first ones to take a hit, but we do see, inshallah, it continues to recover. But we do see a change in footfall in the last few weeks. So it creates hope. And if you can sustain, you will sustain. If you can't, that's another conversation. Right? But we're very hopeful amidst everything that's happening. We remained hopeful from what Dubai showed us, from what the UAE has shown us, the resilience around you. I mean, you can't ignore it, right? How you felt during all those scary times. That's how it is in business as well. That's a reflection. It's not just a reflection on the safety of us as residents or our children. It's in everything we do. And for me, Dubai is my home. It's not just where I chose to live, right? It's everything. It's where my children were born. It's where my businesses succeed, but they might fail, and that's okay. They're going to succeed again. And I think, people who aren't from here don't understand that, right? I think resilience is something that is just a part of who we are, because we see what's around us and we see what's possible.
And beautifully said. And I think that kind of answers very clearly why you decided to go ahead. You have that kind of confidence, and also that I guess awareness that you can be that flexible, that you can pivot, you can shift, and there are ups and downs. I think that came through wonderfully. Um, for yourself, as a entrepreneur, a multiple business owner, I imagine there are times where it's a bit stressful. Right now, probably one of those times. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the
As a
stress
mother.
yourself? As a mother, I mean, yes. As a parent, of course.
As a parent.
Parent, period, is stressful,
Yeah.
for sure. How do you deal with stress?
I try to deal with the stress, right? I go through burnout a lot, but I come out of burnout really quickly as well because
How do you do that? How do you come out of burnout? What do you do to?
first you have to recognize it. I'm a big advocate, even through my brands, of mental health awareness. I'm somebody who, I even studied psychology for 2 years in university before I switched. So I'm very self-aware, and I try to hopefully, reflect that throughout my business as well, and my family and my staff. But listen, this industry, it's not for the weak-hearted. You have to have a level of persistence, and you have to know when to take a beat. And for me, I de-stress by little things, right? Like whether it's making sure I go on a walk, even if it's for 20 minutes, whether it's spending time with my girls alone, throwing my phone and making sure my laptop is in another room, cooking. I love cooking at home for my
I
children.
was going to ask if having so many F&B businesses discourages you from cooking because you're around it so much. But no, you still enjoy cooking for fun.
I love meal planning for my children because I grew up eating Palestinian food for lunch and dinner, and then the breakfasts on the weekend when my mom had time to make us a breakfast. She had 4 kids. And that's where my real love of food came from home cooked food, right? And it's different for all of us. Like, your favorite meal that your mom cooked is probably going to be different than mine. But that nostalgia and that introduction to what it means to have that fresh, home cooked meal waiting for you, to me, that's the happiest times of my life. And all of us sitting around the table together at the end of the day and, fighting and talking about our day. And I want my girls to have that. And F&B can take that away from you, right? As a business owner and operator, you have to keep in mind, me and Haidar don't have partners. We barely have managers, We are the decision makers. And, if you came to Good Burger on Sunday when we opened and Monday, we were on the line the whole time. Yes, we're a bit OCD and we want it to be perfect, but it's also about being an example for your team and showing them what it really is about. But, my girls were there. My girls were coming into the kitchen and, Mama, can I have this and whatever. But I got to go home and, because we have an amazing team, tuck them into bed and then come back for dinner service. But one of the things that I've changed when I did come out of burnout a year ago is making sure that I was prioritizing, having breakfast with my daughters if I could, or always picking them up from school, of course. And before they came home, quickly leave Maiz, because there's one in Dubai Hills, quickly leave it and cook for them. And then we eat together when they come home. So these are things that really helped me a lot, if I'm being honest, is knowing that because I was able to schedule my week correctly, I'm going to get those little bonuses for me.
Well, I guess having those moments, right? And also, I guess, reminding you of kind of one of the reasons you do all this stuff, right? Being able to connect, have that time with your daughters, with family is so important. When you're not taking care of your other children, which are your businesses, so your first child, but it's okay. We'll keep it between us. Anyway, that's like a lovely note to end things on. Thank you so much for being with us, Luma. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Good luck with the launch of Good Burger. Good luck with all your enterprises going forward. And thank you for being with us on Homegrown.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.